Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the September 26th, 2012 meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. And I'll move right into business. The first item is a continuance from prior hearing. It's a request for a certificate of compliance, Riverfront Development Corp. What are the DEP numbers, DEP file numbers on these? Do we have them? (2060558). The project location is 135, 136, 156, and 157 Perkins Street, otherwise known as the Lawrence Mills. Do we have a representative here from Riverfront?
Matt Middlestat, Managing Director of EA Fish Development, here representing Riverfront Development, LLC.
What's your last name again?
Middlestat, Mittellstadt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The floor is
Great.
yours.
Would you like me to begin? Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Conservation Commission for hearing our request this evening. We are coming back before the Commission with a little bit of additional information to complete our process of requesting a certificate of compliance. We were back before you about a little bit over a year ago, back in May of 2011, and the submission from our engineers that prompted that meeting was the calculations to confirm that the stormwater system that was originally designed, in fact, was functioning properly. At that point, staff reviewed and confirmed that they agreed with that report. And also there was either a staff or a committee member walkthrough of the property to confirm that the landscaping that was on our permit or on our order of conditions was in fact installed. There were there was one additional piece of information that was not in hand at that point. Those were the as-built drawings for the DCAM portion of the work. As everybody probably recalls, there were many parties involved in this overall project, including ongoing work by Mira Development. At present, there was the big portion of the park is what DCAM had developed, and then we developed basically the portion of the project that relates to the Renaissance on the river, 152 condominium units in 2 buildings right on the riverfront. We were able to actually secure those as-built drawings from DCAM's contractor and submitted them to commission staff, and after that had asked for an updated hearing to hopefully close the certificate of compliance. Just to give a little bit of background, we were the developer that developed the residential condominium component of this, and have sold all of those units in the project, and they've been sold for many years at this point. We want to come back and get this certificate of compliance because it's, we want to close it out and do the proper paperwork and close the process, but we're also doing it at the express request of the trustees of the condominium association, because every time a unit in the project is sold, those attorneys who do a lot of due diligence in the process flag it as something that's outstanding, and they want to know why it's not completed yet. So that's our primary motivation, is for the folks who live in that property. We no longer own any property in the area.
All right. Are there any questions from the Commission? Commissioner Lovely, Commissioner Varnum?
You mentioned in your narrative that you submitted, I believe, that there were some differences from the original plans. And
In the lightship engineering review of the drainage.
Right.
Yeah, if I've got a copy of the report, as I'm sure staff may as well. I'm happy to provide copies of that. There were a couple of, they noted that there were some areas where there were some minor inconsistencies, but given the sort of industry tolerance and the functionality of the system, that they were really inconsequential, and that the system was operating properly. And at that time, there were no questions or ongoing concerns or need. As of my understanding of staff's review, is that was complete and that we did not need to involve the engineer anymore.
I think the major ongoing concern that I have, or maybe the board has, is the loss of the sycamore trees, which we had many meetings over a couple of years in an attempt to save those trees, and spoke with many people, and for some reason they were cut down without even notification to the Conservation Commission. That's a huge loss, in my opinion, a loss to the value of the condominiums as well. And what I would be looking for is a planting a replacement of those two sycamores of something rather large that's a sycamore. And the problem, as we're looking at the plan here, is that the property line appears to leave not much of a location on the original site to put a large tree like a sycamore. You seem to have a property line just beyond the parking spaces on the opposite side. I don't know if something could be worked out with the university to replant in the same location, but I'm very interested in seeing two rather large caliper sycamore trees planted in the vicinity of where those trees stood originally. And the second problem with the tree location is that that soil was remediated and taken out and replaced with gravel, which is not a good source of nutrients for trees. So in the replanting of trees, I believe there would have to be a replacement of soils of several yards or several truckloads of loam that could support the growth of a tree. And that's what I'm looking for, basically. I have no problem with the drainage. I think that's all been certified. And the project, other than the fact that it has no large sycamores, looks pretty good to me.
Yep.
But I'm looking, before we release any orders, I'm looking for replanting.
Okay. If I may just summarize the history of the sycamore tree, as I think I did last time, but I think it might benefit the discussion. We agree with you wholeheartedly that sycamore tree was a tremendous asset to the site. And in fact, although it was not on the property that we purchased through the land disposition agreement from DCAM, we took very careful measures to provide buffers on the piece of property that we did control during construction, and took the special condition and the order of conditions very seriously. We then, and I have photographs with me tonight that we can review again if you'd like to, but if we just want to discuss it, that's fine as well. When we left the site, demobilized, our contractor demobilized, those trees were thriving and were still intact. In fact, for the entire sales process and many months beyond that, when we had sold off all of the units and were off of the project, effectively the association had taken over. All of the residents owned the land. We didn't. That tree was still standing. As I understand it, although I don't have any specific, nothing in writing to support that, it's been explained to me that the university cut down that tree. This is while the original order of conditions wrapped around multiple parts of it, that simply wasn't a part of the project that we controlled, nor did we remove the tree. We share your concern, but I have no recourse over UMass or any of the other parties involved on that site.
But it was, in fact, a part of your order of conditions that those trees were to be preserved. You're asking us to release an order of conditions that mentions the trees.
I understand the sort of nuance there, but when we had left the project and we no longer owned that land, how could we control what the university did?
They should have come in as soon as you left the project.
All right,
At that point, we wouldn't have had a complete submission because we didn't have the state's as-built drawings, which again, we took it on ourselves to shepherd that burden. The state didn't submit them. We had to go track them down.
I share Commissioner Varnum's concerns, but now that it's, I suppose, been re-explained, it's been about a year and a half since we last discussed this, and you make a good point that it wasn't on your aspect of the property. From what I understand, the original DCAM parcel was carved up into several parcels, several sub-parcels, and with you folks getting the parcel closest to the river, and I guess the university got other parcels, and some of the other parcels went to private developers, which are working on them now, specifically Mira. But yeah, I mean, I suppose bringing that back to light, at least as far, even though I share Commissioner Varnum's concerns over that, I guess for me, unfortunately, right now, I'm going to have to tuck it into the back recesses of my mind and just recall this when this particular parcel, not the Renaissance one, but the current university parcel comes before us, or perhaps any other university project, so we can bring this to light, because these trees, and I appreciate the fact that you have pictures. If you could part with some of those, it's I mean, those trees, like the ones that we're discussing with Mira, came down in the blink of an eye. They literally were, unfortunately taken down in the dead of night, it seems, with a lumberjack with a chainsaw, and it just, Commissioner Varnum, I think, underestimated the amount of effort that this commission put in to save those sycamore trees. I mean, we spent perhaps 2 years in multiple meetings with the state over this, over these trees specifically. So, and if anyone pays attention to these meetings, you'll know that there's a significant history about these trees too. So it just goes beyond the fact that they were spectacular trees. They were, and old and ancient. They were, they're a part of the living history of the city of Lowell. So, so in that respect, you can understand why this commission takes, why it's taking the stand that it is with respect to this issue. But now, at least for me, would be prepared to move on. Now, we do have a proposed sycamore, though, that Mira is intending to place on your site, or it's not your site anymore.
It's not our
I
site,
guess
yeah.
So it wouldn't be in any discussion with you folks. Okay, all right. The only other issue I have is you've received the September 18th memo from our administrator, Swathi Joseph, and she discussed the shrubbery around one of the transformers. Is that going to be addressed? Is that one of the punch items that you determined to be insignificant in the construction build-out of the project, or it was part of the planting plan, so?
Yes, the specific, if memory serves me, on that particular location, it was an access issue more than anything else. Certainly the shrubbery, we adhered very strictly to all the other locations, and it was really, had nothing to do with savings or anything like that. It was an access issue, and we respectfully request that the commission look at the spirit of our adherence to the plan and would accept that.
All right, I have no further questions. Commissioner Chalupa? Commissioner Lynch? All right. All right, this is here in front of us for a certificate of compliance. I think I outlined at least a brief history of this project. The original, now is this, Aaron, is this the original DEP that was, file number that was issued to DCAM, the 558?
Yes.
Okay, so this would only be coming before us for a partial, not a full COC. And it would only, assuming one would issue, it would only be a partial COC, only with respect to the Renaissance on the River parcel, the one that's before us. I don't want to release the COC as it applies to the other parcels that are still outstanding on specifically the university properties and the mirror properties. They'll have to, they're as successors entitled to those that were so encumbered by the COC, they would ultimately have to come before us once their build-outs are completed, or you know, whatnot. I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, you probably could care less whether or not the COC, any release is issued with respect to the other properties. You're just here for the Renaissance.
Yeah, I mean, correct. We do have a good working relationship with MIRA, and I do understand, correct me if I'm wrong, that they have a separate order of conditions for their development of so-called buildings 2 and 33, the two buildings that are under construction right now. My understanding was that was a separate order of conditions, but I could be wrong.
Well, that was either an order, or is that that was on a request for determination of applicability, I believe, but
Correct.
with conditions.
I'm sorry, that's how it was
So-
explained to
The
me.
recent one that was reviewed was a request for determination of applicability that was issued at
Right, and that had, and we issued that with conditions. We
Right.
issued a negative with conditions.
Correct.
But again, the 558 order covered the entire area. And I don't want to release, I don't want to release that, the entire original order of conditions. I only want to release the parts that are under the control. It's, again, the applicant here before us wasn't responsible for work done off the parcel that they purchased, which is a sub-parcel of the original order of conditions. So insofar as that's the case, I only want to release so much so that controlled. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was this an order that was given to you, or was this the order that was given to DCAM?
I believe the order was issued to Riverfront.
That's correct. It is to
It-
Riverfront Development Corp.
All right, so all right, then the issue with respect then that was itemized in the 558 order with respect to the Sycamores was just for protection of the perimeter as existed on their property?
That's correct.
Okay, so it had nothing to do with the actual, preservation of the Sycamores insofar as it wasn't on their property. I want to be careful here because I don't want to be releasing something that isn't being asked for.
If I may, our interpretation was that it was incumbent upon us to provide a major buffer of all construction activity, that there were no stored materials near it, that no equipment that had a long boom or a bucket were anywhere near swinging into it, and that's certainly what we instructed our contractors to do.
All right. Well, 558, this would have gone back to probably 2004, 2005? Yeah, 2004. Okay.
Yeah, issue date of August 5th, or record date of August 5th, 2004.
All right. Okay, so this then is for the Renaissance on the River project then? It's not, it didn't cover the larger parcel?
Yes, I'll have to correct my earlier statement. This is just for
Okay.
the part that is what is now the park and the part that is the Renaissance in the river.
All right.
Yeah. There was an earlier order of conditions that was for the entire site that does
Okay,
not include
all
this
right.
parcel.
I don't want to be releasing that one in any way, shape, or form. Did that cover their parcel also? The earlier one?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure how it could, because then this would have been open under two separate order of conditions.
Well, the earlier order was the one issued to to DCAM.
Right, but the properties, right, exactly. What I'm not sure is if, it must not have been, because if the properties that were issued in the original order of condition, even though they're owned by separate entities, couldn't be open, there couldn't be an open order of conditions that they're under. That makes sense.
All right. Well, no, in fact, it could be open. The original order that had issued to DCAM on this parcel, that project was never built out. It was to be a pedestrian park and whatnot, and that was never, like a earthen amphitheater type thing, that was never developed and built out.
Right, so it would have lapsed in that case.
Well, it's still on the property, though. It may have, it might not be usable anymore, but it still encumbers the property. And it's something you should actually look into, because it's probably still on your property, too. It's just not your particular order. But it would still encumber the Renaissance property itself.
Yeah, I will certainly advise the trustees.
And that's the one that addresses the sycamore trees.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I will certainly advise them. Again, their association is the owner of that, the common areas in that condominium. But as I understand it, they are being very cooperative and speaking with Mira and others about sycamore location for the trees that they are going to potentially do actually on trust land.
All right.
Or association land.
I only heard from Commissioner Varnum, so I'm not really getting a sense of where anyone's going on this, but it's here for a certificate of compliance. I'll open it up for discussion if someone wants to make a motion, obviously, one way or another, so we can open it up for discussion.
Mr. Commissioner, I got just a clarifying question. From what I've heard, it doesn't sound like this certificate of compliance, by granting that work has been done, goes beyond anyone other than Renaissance, correct?
Say that, the last part again? Goes beyond anyone other than?
Right. I understand the history that this was an original decamp property that's been, subsequently subdivided to at least three entities: Renaissance, UMass Lowell, and the current project's being handled by Mirror Development. The release being sought by Renaissance, under the certificate of compliance, was specific to Renaissance. It did not include the other two. So I think, to me, it seems like a pretty straightforward matter, notwithstanding the issue with the sycamore trees, but I think it seems like it's a clean closure, so to speak, that if we grant, if we agree that the work is done under the certificate of compliance, it's only applicable to the Renaissance properties. We're not kind of muddying the waters with the issues with the UMass Lowell parcel and the Mirror Development parcel. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. If that is indeed the case, I'm satisfied that the work has been done and would be willing to make a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for that parcel.
Motion by Commissioner Lovely. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, by Commissioner Chaluka. Any discussion?
I'm still a little concerned about the planting of the trees. If Mir is talking to the condo association, who is overseeing that particular part of the other order of conditions?
Sure, it's actually under it's under the RDA that was issued a couple months ago. DPD, along with the historic board staff and MIRA officials, as well as some other folks with the Renaissance on the River, are trying to identify locations that meet the intent of the replanting from that RDA approval. One of them was to locate one of the plantings in the area of the two that were removed, and has been discussed on the university property, so that at the very least it would kind of mirror the placement of that historically. They are aware of the soil amendment issue that you brought up earlier, and we'll continue to work with them to make sure that whatever they use to, when they plant the tree, that it's planted in soil that will ensure that it actually lives. The other two locations, one is actually between the two buildings, right next to the pathway, the kind of decorative pathway that brings people towards or away from the walking path, the riverfront walking path. And then the third is on the eastern side of the building, on the eastern building wall of the second building on the Renaissance on the River. It's kind of more of an open area right now that gives a pretty good view down to the river, but there's a line of existing trees that we had worked with a number of folks, including our landscape designer and DPD staff and historic board staff, to identify a way to ensure that the design intent of the park was retained with the placement of that sycamore, so it's actually in line with kind of an alley of trees, and actually kind of forms a parallel line along the river. So it's not, the plantings aren't necessarily up on Perkins Street, but they're, I think at least one of them replaces the two that were removed, and the other two actually are more recreational kind of spaces where people can actually get access to them, see them, and experience them in some way, at least in a passive way, which I think was the intent of what the Conservation Commission was talking about. We'll work with them again with soil amendment in the two park locations, but I don't think that's going to be as big of an issue as the parking lot, because it's a landscape heavy area.
Now, is this planting going to take place in the spring, or?
We're shooting to shooting to work with Mira so that's done. No, I'm sorry that we're going to try to get it done this fall. I know we're running short on time.
Well, I mean, it's a little late now, probably.
If it's too late, then I'll lean on both the commission and our landscape architect on time as far as timing. But we were shooting for the fall.
Yeah, we're within 2 weeks of the first frost, so it's not a great time to be planting saplings.
And we'll wait till the spring.
Yeah. All right, thanks. Any further discussion on the motion?
Just a question for Aaron, just to clarify on the property placement. The placement of the sycamores, is it specific to the common area that I guess is owned by the city? Whose land of the tree is the trees being placed on?
Well, there's one of them the one that's proposed where the two original is on the Renaissance on the River property. The other one that is is adjacent to the decorative pathway that is a diagonal through the two buildings. It kind of depends. There's space over there. We're not exactly sure exactly where it is at the point, but it will either be on city property or the Renaissance on the River. Same with the other side, where the property lines go as they kind of wrap around the buildings. Those two will kind of be determined, but they'll either be in the city property or the Renaissance on the River property.
The reason I asked the question is, we're operating under the auspice of the RDA that came with conditions, and there are other entities that have an interest in this. Obviously, Renaissance being partial property owner, the city park. I guess that would be what the parks and what department would from the city would.
It's the Parks Department.
Parks Department, and then there's the historic board, because there was a whole landscape that needed to be followed,
Right.
for the master plan. So, I guess I'd be looking to you or someone from the city, which I think you've been doing, Aaron, is to kind of be the point person to coordinate those various interests, so that at
Yes.
the end of the day, when something comes forward for the commission for approval, we know that those other entities are in agreement with the placement of the trees.
That's right.
Is that correct?
That's what's happening. Right now, what we're trying to do is get final, I guess, approval or consent from the Renaissance in the River organization,
Right.
the homeowners association, whoever the president, I don't know who the contact is. We've been working with Stephen Stoll and the historic board to kind of
Right.
head up that conversation. But as far as the city parks department, the historic board, the
Yep.
requirements that we're supposed to meet in terms of the design intent of the park, all of those, the placement have been essentially okayed. Those are verified, okay spaces. We're just trying to get final word from the Renaissance in the River property,
Gotcha.
which, as I understand it, though, that we've already talked with them and have received a general okay. It's just trying to a final yes. Let's go
So
ahead.
once that's done, and then it's just a matter of coming back before the commission
Right.
to sort of, to get the
Right.
commission's,
Right,
approval.
right. I originally intended this plan to be more of an informational, but it kind of fit well, I think, with the way this discussion was going with the certificate of compliance this evening. So
And then
hopefully it'll
with-
shed some light on what replantings were going to be happening.
And then with that being done, and, in addition to Renaissance getting its certificate of compliance at some point, subsequent to that, Mira could, in theory, come before the commission looking for getting a similar.
Well, there isn't a requirement for a certificate of compliance for RDA. I mean, they
Right,
have to
so-
meet the condition, but there isn't a formal form that they have to submit.
Right.
At some point, staff or the commission will have to go out there and confirm that they met their conditions. But once those trees are planted, we would want to provide a report back that
And
it's
where-
been and done.
Okay, where I'm going with this, to Commissioner Varnum's point about the trees that were removed from the UMass Lowell property, I think once these activities take place, that's the only remaining outstanding issue that the commission can address with UMass Lowell at a later point in time.
Or whoever the subsequent owner is for the property
Okay.
that the original order of conditions were issued under.
Thank you for that clarification.
I have just one more question. Was it discussed who would be caring for the trees after planting, watering and such?
It's likely going to be the combination of all three entities who are actually already participating, because Renaissance in the River, the City Parks Department, and Mira Development all provide funds and support to maintaining that park area right now. So there would be a combination of the three in it.
I didn't mean long-term, I meant just to get them established. They're going to need watering fairly frequently.
I can confirm what that process would be. I don't think there's been an operation report set up yet, but I can ensure that there is.
All right, any further discussion? Okay. We have a motion to issue a certificate of compliance. What I would like to specifically just state is that this is only for the 558 order and not for any prior order of conditions that may have previously existed on the parcel, just for this particular order in and of itself. So all in favor signify by saying aye or nay. Commissioner Lovely?
Aye.
Commissioner Varnum?
Aye.
Chair is yes. Commissioner Chaluka?
Aye.
Commissioner Lynch?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. The certificate of compliance is issued, and we'll issue, you should receive it in a couple of days.
Thank you
Okay,
very much.
thank you for
Appreciate
coming in.
everybody's time.
Thank you for your efforts. All right, moving on is a request for determination of applicability, the Franco-American School. The project location is 357 Pawtucket Street, and it's the removal of an existing storage shed located within 100 feet, the 100-foot buffer of the bank of the Northern Canal. And is there anyone here to speak on this?
My name is Sister Jane Holland.
Sister, can you tell us briefly what you're planning to do?
Well, what we want to do is, it's basically a wall that was built 100 years ago for the kids to play racquetball and handball. And down below, the area was just a small storage area for the rackets and the balls. Right now, it's a lot of it is rotten, and I have concerns, parts may fall, and there's a lot of holes and stuff. It's really an eyesore. And what we basically want to do is to take down that wall and to complete it just with a chain link fence that's already there. We have a section from the canal that goes up, and that's a chain link fence, and then they put the wall in between. And they did put the posts there so that the chain link can hook on as the wall comes down. And that's basically what we're asking to do.
Now, you characterize it as a wall. You mean the whole building, correct?
It's, well, what it is, it's, when they built it, it's pretty high, and there's like two kind of wings on the side, and it goes in this way. So it's this way and like this, and there's a section on the top. And down below, there's an area for storage.
Oh, is it open on the playground side?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I wasn't able to look in there, so I
Yeah,
didn't.
it is, it
Okay.
is.
So it's just a three-sided?
That's right, it's a three-sided wall with storage on the bottom.
Okay.
But, and the top part is sagging now because it's rotted, so I have concerns for the kids playing out there, that parts may start to fall off.
Okay.
So for security reasons and because it's an eyesore, we just want to take it down and continue it with the fencing.
So from the grotto side, this is that gray
That's right,
structure.
that's
Sort
right.
of like it almost looks like a stands, actually, if you can't.
That's right, that's,
yeah,
yes,
okay.
yes.
All right, we're talking about the same thing. Yeah, it's characterized as 12 foot by 8, but I would have guessed it'd be about 16 by 16 or so,
Yeah, somewhere
Um,
around there, yeah.
all right. The two trees that are behind it, what are those? They look like ash or hickories.
I think they are the ash trees, yeah.
Ash trees, okay. Those are, you're not gonna touch those?
No, those stay. It's
Okay.
just the wall.
Those are
No,
beautiful.
I wouldn't take a
Those are
tree down
beautiful
unless I
trees.
really had to.
And
yeah.
you're gonna complete the chain link fence?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I didn't, as I said, there was kids out in the playground when I was out there, so I
Yes.
didn't peek inside, but what's the surface, the ground surface inside?
It's basically ground.
Me-
There's no asphalt on
There's
the
no
inside.
asphalt? What are
No.
your plans for,
I think we're just going to try to beautify it, maybe put grass seed down and or something like that.
you're not, and the fence will block the kids from
That's
stomping
right,
all over it?
that's right.
Okay, all right. How long do you anticipate the process? I mean, to me, it seemed like a guy could do that in an afternoon, but,
Oh, yeah, it'll probably take them a day to take it down and put the fence
Okay.
up. It's not a
Yeah.
big thing,
I
no.
mean, it looked like you could push it and it would.
Yes, oh, yes, and that's my fear, for safety for the
All right.
kids.
Okay. I just want to discuss that. When I was out there, I'm actually a little bit more concerned about something going on. There's an access road behind the grotto that goes from the rear area of the playground.
Yes,
There's a gate back there,
that's right,
and it runs along the top of the northern canal bank.
it does.
That looked like it had just been recently cleared out.
Yes,
Okay, is that your property, or?
yes, that's our
All right,
property. yeah.
you can't do that. And we should have been notified. I'm more concerned with that
What do
than
you
I am
mean-
with the shed.
What do you mean cleared out?
Well, it looks like someone had cut all the vegetation out, and it looked like it had been graded a little bit to
that
strip
was-
the vegetation on the
That
ground.
was, they used to always put a garden in the back of there.
Okay,
But when the sisters were there, they always planted a pretty big garden in the back of there. There are some trees, and the trees are still there.
yeah. No, I didn't see any big trees felled or anything like that,
No.
which was good, but it looked like all the lower vegetation had been completely cleared out. Is that the garden?
That was the garden area.
No, that's big garden then.
Yeah, they used to have a big garden in the back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you still use that as a garden?
No, we don't do the garden anymore.
Okay.
No.
What are your ultimate plans for that area?
I think we just want to make everything look nice, so we just want to seed it and,
That
yeah.
would be a great idea.
yeah,
I was gonna suggest some seed there to
Yeah.
stabilize it, because I'm concerned about the loose soil
yes.
eroding down into the canal area. And that was my concern
Yeah,
there.
we're going to seed it. We're going to
Yeah.
try to make everything look real nice.
Yeah,
We're celebrating our 100th anniversary there.
yeah, as I said,
It's
it
a
didn't
couple of
look
weeks.
like any large trees. It just looked like it was weedy type thing. But if it
Yes.
was a garden, that would
Yes.
explain
Yeah.
the recent soil turnage. So, okay. All right, I'll open it up for questions from the commission. I mean, to me, when I looked at it, it looked like a -3, but it's Commissioner Lovely.
Beat me to the punch. I was going to offer a motion, but let's see what others have to say. I have no comments.
All right, Commissioner Varnum, Commissioner Chalupa, Commissioner Lynch, okay. And I don't believe there's anything from the city engineer's office. There's no plan, there was mention of a dumpster in the memo. There's no plans to put a dumpster there. I can't
No,
imagine.
we already have a dumpster on the property.
Yeah, I mean, that's such
I
a,
just moved it last July because I was hoping that this would have taken place over the summer while the kids were not there.
yeah.
So I moved the dumpster to give people a chance to take it down and put up the fence. But the dumpster is on the property, and it'll just be moved back to where it was before.
Where was it before?
It's like behind that shed. It was right in that area.
Oh, all right, and okay.
It's in the parking lot area.
All right, it's such a beautiful area right there.
It is, yeah.
Kind of don't want a dumpster sitting there, you know?
No, we'll
All right.
move that, yeah.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll offer a motion to grant the, I should say, offer the motion to issue a -3 determination. Negative determination.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right, what that means is a -3 determination is you've requested us, the technical aspect of it is in a request for determination of applicability, you've asked us whether or not the Wetlands Protection Act applies. Our answer to your request is yes, it does apply, but since the work you're proposing to do will have very minimal or no impacts on the resources, we're not requiring you to file anything further. You
Okay.
can do your proposed work, you can take down the shed,
Okay.
and complete the fence. Okay.
So, do I have to see the building commissioner, or how does that work
I
now?
would imagine you need a demolition I don't know.
Yeah, I need a
mean,
permit.
I don't know
the
what
permit- The permit
I don't
was-
know what the size structure is for a
Okay.
demolition permit, so.
Yeah, the permit was filed in July, and it's still on file.
Yep,
So,
It's pending this -3,
Oh,
so
all right, okay.
it's
Yeah.
on hold for this decision. As soon as this is filed, which will be tomorrow, it should be able to move forward. As my understanding is that there's nothing else holding it up.
Okay, yeah, and I mean, I was joking when I said someone could push it over. I honestly don't think it's that weak,
no,
but,
it's, yeah, it's,
yeah, no, it would certainly make the site much nicer looking,
it would.
yeah.
And people could see the grotto from the bridge, coming across the bridge.
Yeah, and the gentleman who was out there today let me go down the wrong way street, so I appreciate that, especially given the traffic that was out
Oh,
there
yeah,
at the time,
yeah.
so. All right, you're all set.
Okay, do I
Thank
have
you.
to sign here?
If you could sign in,
Okay.
please, thank you. Moving on is a request for determination of applicability, Shayla R.E. Ventures LLC. Project location is 1075 Westford Street, and this is a request for determination of applicability regarding a part of the property within the 100-foot wetland buffer zone to increase parking spaces.
Hello, my name is Himanshu Bhatnagar. I am the owner of the property. And I guess, do I have to say something now, or do I answer questions?
No, if you could tell us what you're planning, what you want to do out there?
Okay. If you look at this picture here, we have a little corner here with most of the corner is outside the 100-foot, but there is a small triangular area that is inside the 100-foot buffer. That,
As opposed to that, let me just interrupt you for a second. If you could just give us an overview in words as to what you intend to do. I know you want to increase parking spaces, but if you could just explain it.
sure. Yeah, you have to excuse my ignorance. I mean, I'm very new to this business. I'm a programmer, I know software, but this is new. Essentially, we have a small patch in the back where we currently have a dumpster that is about 2,000 to 2,200 square feet of space that we own, but it's not paved or graded, and we need a few additional parking spaces, like about 4 or 5. And if we continue on the northeast, on the west side further, we can get about 4 or 5 parking spaces. But for doing that, we have to move the dumpster back a bit, and we have to take some of the area on the northeast side, and basically remove the shrubs and put some pea stone, graded and put pea stone, so we can get this additional parking spaces. And we have this building was purchased in December of 11, sorry. And whatever arrangements or orders were there basically didn't seem to have any issues with what we have now in terms of parking or what we have to do. There is 18 dry wells in the building to take all the drainage of the stormwater or whatever. And there is this high wall, I don't know if you want to call it a wall, but all along the perimeter so that the water doesn't flow over. All along from one corner to the other till this little green patch that we have, that you see here. So essentially what we are looking to do is to take this green patch, remove the shrubs, grade it to the point that we can put some permeable material and then use it for parking. That's in a nutshell what we were trying to do.
All right. What I'd like to do, and just bear with me for a few minutes, what I'd like to do is give a little, and it may help you a little bit too, give a little bit of history on the site.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There's only 2 sitting members of the commission that were here when this project was originally proposed to us. And I know it was before your ownership of the property too. I know that the original developer never finished the project, and that they ran into some difficulties, and then ultimately you folks came into possession or purchased the property within I guess just real recently.
Yeah, 7 months ago.
Okay, so, but I know you didn't build out the site, this project was it required Massachusetts state legislative action in order for it to be developed.
Wow.
This was originally conservation land held by the city of Lowell as part of the city of Lowell wellfield sites, which are behind this parcel. This were the original freshwater sites, freshwater supply for the city and Chelmsford, way back, many hundreds of years, 100+ years ago.
Okay. Doesn't look the same now though.
The exchange for this is now part of the Concord River Greenway, and working with Parks and Conservation Trust in developing the bikeways and the walkway along the Concord River sites out of downtown and towards Lawrence and Borica Streets. This site was proposed originally to have been a bank, I guess, with doctor's offices up above on the 2nd story. But it was also, it was supposed to have had a drive-through in the rear. And it was subject to several meetings before the commission in order to place the drive-through and in order to satisfy the ability for emergency equipment to be able to turn back there and to operate back there and to get through back there. And if you look at the shape of the building, how it's jogged and it's pulled away from the wetland, that was sort of a compromise that was reached with the commission in order to maximize the drivability to the rear of that building. And this commission resisted heavily any further encroachment back towards the wetland area, as you're proposing now. I just want you to understand that there was some significant, and as a matter of fact, it was denied, any requests from the original developers to this parcel. We were not, at the time, and this was back 2004, or 5, 3, we were opposed to any extension of either the building or the development or any disturbance of this site such as you're proposing now. I want you to understand that historically that's the way we've viewed it. Now, that being said, this is here for an RDA for us now. To me, the act clearly applies, and I don't have enough information before me to make a determination to say what you're doing is just a minimal impact in the buffer zone. And again, you'll be fielding questions from the rest of the commission too. But to me, I don't have enough information here. There's a fairly significant, and I don't want to call it an earthen berm because it's not. It's an upland area. There's an earthen upland area that extends up, that comes up, from your parking area that sort of surrounds that corner of the parking area. But it comes to a point, basically. It just comes to a very narrow ridge as it approaches over by the catch basin and that little garden area, I guess you'd call it, by where the engineered wall starts and heads over,
Right.
and heads along the back of the property. It appears that's where you're starting to, just continue the line of the existing parking, whereas it curves now in towards the building. You're proposing to just go straight out, keep it in a roughly straight line back to that, left rear corner of the property. And again, so you'd be proposing to cut into that earthen area in order to do that.
There's not much of the, I understand the rising area is there to protect things, but it's mostly cleared area that has shrubs. If you look at it, we're just looking to, in this picture, it's got a good clear thing that it's this area where, like, if you look at this, is probably the only shrub that's in there, but it's not really high or anything. It's
No,
probably about a
No.
foot or so.
I understand what you're saying. I was out there 2 hours ago.
Okay. So
and-
it's basically a clear area, and what we are looking to, if you put the historical perspective to it, then yes, I understand.
Yeah, but that where the dumpster is sitting now, that semi-quarter circle area where the dumpster is sitting now, that's probably 700-800 square feet. It's 30 by 30, and then you have to take the circle area off, so it's not 1,800 square feet. It's significantly less than that.
Well, it's an approximate that we are looking
No,
at.
it's not even half. So
It's the,
and following along the line, at least, the line that I'm looking at, it appears that you're cutting in to that area in the direction of the wetland. And because of that, you're very close to the wetland area there, even though you're significantly above it as far as elevation goes. So, you're not in floodplain there. But we're also dealing with buffer zone too. And because you're actually now significantly disturbing the buffer in this particular area, to me, it would require a filing. To me, it was very simple to me. I would vote that the act does apply in this particular instance, and you would be required to file a notice of intent. The reason I gave the history, though, is because you might want to think about that. Because you have at least 2 members of the board in the past that have voted against extending this particular project into that area. So I just want you to realize that before, and again, you may, you'll have an opportunity to discuss this with the rest of the members here tonight. But for me, I don't see myself changing. Okay, so it seems to me the site, once you finish off the parking off to the, along the right-hand side and along the left-hand side, are you planning on putting lines in there? Because there seems to be quite a bit of parking. I mean, and what you're proposing, I see what your lines that you're making here. It seems to me that there's not enough gained parking for the amount, especially considering that you're going to have a dumpster there and you're going to have a truck that gets access to that dumpster. I know you have parking lines painted in proximity, but I honestly can't see in February when there's snow out there and whatnot that the truck, that your contractor for your dumpster is going to be too happy about having to negotiate a couple of those parking spaces in order to get at the dumpster. They might tell you, hey, we don't want to be dealing with that. I don't want to speak for them, but I do want you to understand that similar action was proposed before without success in front of at least 2 members of this commission. So
I'm starting with a handicap here.
say that again?
I'm starting with a handicap.
I
think, I just like to say one thing about the
Yeah.
dumpster. We are proposing to move the dumpster all the way back in a straight line. So the truck currently has no problems backing or moving it all the way to the position that it is right now, and just continues to proceed without any impact on any parking. There's no negotiation of any parking spots, because we're just moving it back in a straight line for the 3 spots.
All right, I mean, I'll take you at your word, but I don't see that happening. I mean, it's,
They're going through all the cars now that are parked all along on the west side. So they should not have, it is just a straight line for them. It's not negotiating anything additional.
the other issue I want to bring to light is, and it's not related to what you're proposing to do, but it was an observed issue that exists on the site. In the back corner of the property, there's either a storm gusset from the roof or it's a fire sprinkler system standpipe. It's standpipe number 2. It's an elbow that comes out of the bottom of the building, and there's some significant rust stains across the paved parking area running over to the catch basin. That catch basin empties into a retention area, into a riprap area, and into the wetland. That needs to be addressed, because that cannot be draining into the wetland.
Yeah, but I think we have this high a wall at the end.
No. This is rust coming out of a standpipe in the building. And it's stained the parking area. It's about 12 feet wide, and it runs completely across the parking lot and empties into the catch basin.
Okay.
That's a pollutant that can't be running into the catch basin. All right, so that, whatever that is,
We'll address
needs to be rectified.
Sure, no
Okay.
problem.
It may have just been that the fire department was testing out a sprinkler standpipe, and water had been sitting in it for a while and it just flushed out. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that needs to be looked at and addressed.
This building has been lying vacant for a very long time.
Okay.
And it's only now, in the last 4 months, that we have started to populate the floors. So I'm sure there is something that, obviously, I don't know anything about it.
Where all the gas meters are in the back.
I know where you're
Yeah,
talking.
there's an elbow, and it's marked number 2. There's a marking on it, number 2. And as I said, I don't know if it's a standpipe a drain pipe for a roof gusset. It doesn't look like one. It looks more like it's a standpipe drain for a sprinkler system in the building. and it may just be that the fire department flushed it out. I don't know.
Well, we get a lot of sprinkler work done in the last several months because all these floors are getting populated, so we are putting a lot of new construction inside. So the sprinkler systems have been probably flushed out. I don't know, but I can definitely
But-
find out.
But if you notice that there's a significant staining on the, recent staining
Sure.
on the pavement, and that's running into the catch basin. That's a pollutant, and that can't be running into the wetland.
Sure, we'll address that.
Okay, that catch basin does empty into the wetlands, so, just to let you know.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Lovely, any questions? Commissioner Varnum?
Do you have any idea how many trees would need to be removed for this proposal?
Probably none. There is only one tree that I feel that may have some roots exposed, but I don't think we have to remove any trees on this area. See, this is, if you look at it, this side is pretty clear. There's hardly anything we have to do here. It's this side that we have to remove some bushes, and mostly these are shrubs or bushes. There are no trees in the area, but we'll definitely get the, we're getting the surveying company to actually go and do the measurement. Then we can find out if there are any trees that fall in there.
It
But we
seemed-
don't know.
It seemed like, I think it was an oak was right on the edge of the bank. In fact, some of its roots were kind of hanging out.
Where did you see that?
Up behind this dumpster.
Behind the dumpster?
Yeah.
I have some pictures, but I don't, okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah, I noted just since we're talking about it, there's about a 5-inch caliper maple that's right at the point. It's a smaller maple, but there's 2 oaks, in fact, much larger, that are up in the upper area that are in that thing. And again, I don't know from your drawing or the map that you provided, there's no detail as to elevations, there's no detail as to measurements and distance to the wetland. As I said, there's not enough information here, at least for me to act on this request. As I said, to me, it's clear that the act applies here and you would be required to file. I'm sorry, Commissioner Varnum.
Do you have any idea how much of that gravel material would need to be removed?
It's mostly, there's no gravel there now, it's mostly.
It's a natural gravel bank just behind where you're
Okay.
talking. I thought you would have to cut some of that away.
I don't think it's a lot. It's probably, again, it's extending that little wall that we had, the thing that we have here, and going back here. But the area that we are seeing, it's still low. It's not like we have to go and cut into the banks that you see behind those little, high elevation things. We don't have to go that far. Because the way the line is going, it actually, the amount of mud we have to remove doesn't look like a lot. But again, I'm not an expert in this area to make.
Well, you didn't have any stakes or anything out there for us to be able to tell exactly how far back you'd want to go, but to me, what it appears is that whole lot was upland, and it was all cut away from the street back when that building was built. So that bank in the back, that wall of sand,
Yeah,
used to continue out to the street.
yes.
It seems to me that in order to increase your parking, you would have to remove some of that. And just beyond that is where the slope starts down to the wetland.
Yeah.
So my concern would be that once you remove that and remove the trees that are growing on it, then you have potential for eroding right into the wetland, snow being pushed over there and things like that.
Well, I think clearly we're not looking to push the snow in that side. The snow will be pushed on the east and the west side. The key thing here is that my own investigation of that space was that we are not going to get to the point where we're touching the high elevation mud. It's going to be before that. And there is a lot of undulated material there, or mud, but it's probably this high, at most, not this level. There is, in the back, you actually have to climb up to go there. And I don't believe in this parking design that we have done, that we have to go that far. So it should not affect, because that, I understand, is a protection even for us in case there is flooding, the water gets blocked there. So I don't think we have any plans to reduce the elevated bank. I mean, I understand what you're saying, that it went all the way to the street at that level, but we're not looking to bring that down. It's before that.
We don't have enough information on this plan, but it appears to me that the site was applicable before, and it's still applicable now. The Wetlands Protection Act is applicable.
Commissioner Chalupka?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's any way that we could say that, or I personally wouldn't feel comfortable issuing a -3 determination without seeing the exact plans for the elevations and stuff like that. I would definitely like to see more information and have a notice of intent filed.
So what kind of information would you like to see, so I can probably...
The elevations on the site, and then what they would be after your proposed work.
Okay, so the current elevation and what it will be after.
And what type of shrubs you would have to remove to make room for the dumpster in its new location.
Okay.
I mean, which we could see by going there. I haven't had a chance to visit the site, so I haven't seen exactly what shrubs are in that area.
Okay. What else would you like me to?
Are there anything further? Just hold on. Commissioner Lynch?
No, I just agree with the other commissioners and what they said. I think definitely some more plans with details on it would be necessary for us to make a decision. But I agree. I don't think issuing a -3 determination is the best idea for this one.
Yeah, I think and now that everyone's had a chance to comment, we're not saying really that we need more detail on this filing. What we're saying is that the act applies, and that you're going to be required to file a full notice of intent in order to do what you're proposing to do. It doesn't matter how much more information you give us with respect to this RDA. And again, the information that we have, even though we have somewhat of a fairly detailed plan, it doesn't have any measurements on it. It doesn't have any particulars about what you're proposing to do, other than just show a drawing of where you intend to go. But what we're saying is that regardless of that, you're in an area where the Wetlands Protection Act is invoked. And Commissioner Varnum brought up a very good point that when this site was originally developed, it was done under an order of conditions. A notice of intent was filed on this site. And your proposed work in this particular case is at one of the closest points to our areas of concern. And because of that, what we're saying is that this proposed work is going to require a filing, okay? But what I want you to understand is that, and again, I don't recall specifically, but I do recall that the back boundary line to this site and development of the back boundary to this site, and that's was contested, and with the original developers wanting to extend it further and the commission pushing it back. And as a matter of fact, the building was redesigned because of that, because they had to pull the parking area further away from the wetland. So they had to reconfigure the shape of the building to allow for traffic to be able to get by. What I also want you to understand, though, too, is that there's a retaining wall back there. And that if you start just just before the catch basin comes in, there's a engineered block wall behind the catch basin area that runs along the length, that whole wooden fence, that wooden guardrail that's back there. Just beyond that, there's a block retaining wall. And that was required by us in order for them to maximize the drive back there and not impact any further, because normally what construction, the normal practice would be to slope that down into the wetland area at least no steeper than a 1-to-1 grade, okay? And they would reinforce that with appropriate landscaping engineering in order to harden that particular slope. In this particular case, there's no way this commission would allow them to do that, because that was even closer to, that slope would have brought them even closer into the wetland. All right, so they actually had to manufacture a much more costly to them solution, and that was a retaining wall. Okay, you see where we're going here? And if you cite along where that triangle is on your plan that you've brought in with us tonight that says parking, it's sort of about 2/3 of the way from the right-hand corner of the property. It's there's a little triangle that says parking, and it's sort of probably just to the left of the catch basin on this plan. You don't indicate where the catch basin is, but the current berm that runs along there now turns there and runs over to the current dumpster area. Okay, if you went to the right rear corner, not the left rear corner, but the right rear corner of the property, and you sight along the current berm and fence, which I did today, you roughly want to straighten out the back line of that. I know it's not straight, it's got a little bit of a wave to it. It undulates back and forth a little bit, and you've shown that on your plan. But you roughly want to go straight back.
Not that side, only in the corner.
Right. No, I understand that.
We
That
won't
would
touch anything else except for the corner behind.
just roughly walking that would almost entirely remove that upland berm area between the existing parking and the wetland area and the slope down into the wetland area. Now, I know you're frowning over there saying, maybe that's not so, but if your drawing is accurate, that's what's going to happen. And that's what we're saying, you're going to need a filing to do that.
Yeah,
Let me just say, it really doesn't matter. We don't have enough information to act on an RDA, but regardless, I don't want to send you on a goose chase and get all this extra information, because it's not going to matter. This is going to, because you're at about the closest point you can get to the resource area, and because the commission is seeing impacts to the wetland area, you're going to be required to file, okay? So you're going to have to take that up with your engineers and your wetland scientists and the people that you retain in order to do the project. And you're going to have to discuss with them what you're going to need in order to file and come back before us. But there isn't a lot more information that you can provide us that's going to say there's going to be very minimal impacts here, unless you just come back and say, we're not going to move the dumpster, we're not going to go back, we're just going to change just that little half circle area where the dumpster's sitting now. But that's not what's shown on your plan here. You're showing some significant cutback into that wetland area.
Yeah, and I think that's wrong in the plan, clearly. I mean, it's not this
But that's the plan you brought in, and that's the plan you're showing us.
But that's because the images from the satellite images don't quite fit in with the aspect ratio of the pictures. But the only area we are interested in is this corner. Nothing is going to happen here. This remains as is. We're not even planning to put any parking spaces in this entire space. It is just this corner that of which, if you look at this whole area here is not even within the 100 feet, which is where the dumpster is currently.
I'm counting 10 parking spaces plus a new dumpster area
In here,
that doesn't exist out there now, that's in fact within the buffer to the wetland and is sitting right on top of the embankment that leads down into the wetland area. To me, it's crystal clear. The act applies. You're going to be required to file in order to do anything as you're proposing or that you've outlined
okay,
to do.
that's fine. I just think I'm going to come back here with the filing as well. So I just wanted to point out that the only thing that we are looking to actually do is this corner here, this
Okay,
thing
but
here.
but
That's it.
But sir, that's not what you've outlined in your RDA. In your RDA, you say you want to do 1,800 square feet. I paced it out. That dumpster area is 30 feet by 30 feet, and my pacing isn't that inaccurate. And considering that it's a semicircle, so it's only roughly two-thirds of that 900 square feet that I paced out, that puts it at about 700 square feet. That's less than half. It's significantly less than half of what you have in your RDA, okay? And you're showing, as I said, you're showing 10 parking places and a new dumpster area in an area that's within very close proximity to the wetland area. To me, it's crystal clear. You've got a file. I'm getting that from the board. Are there any further questions? All right, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to issue a positive determination.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Members signify by saying aye. Any opposed, nay?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right. In order to do any work out there, sir, you need to file what we call a notice of intent under the Wetlands Protection Act and under the City of Lowell ordinance. In the meantime, though, you need to address the situation with the staining and whatever it is that's emptying into that catch basin. That needs to be rectified, or enforcement could be taken on that. So, okay. All right.
All right, thank you.
Moving on to the enforcement order, this was the 5157 Shirley Avenue concerning DEP file number 2060584, and it's the construction of a single-family home bordering land subject to flooding, bordering land subject to flooding. This was the enforcement order that had issued back in September, perhaps even August now. September,
August.
to stop work, Paul Mercia being the landowner and the developer. At our last meeting, September 12th, this commission issued an order pursuant to the enforcement order that Mr. Mercia was to furnish us with a replanting plan, which we have received a plan and have received two letters from Stephen Erickson from Norse Environmental, one dated September 14th that I believe we received on September 14th through the mails, and one dated September 18th, which was received by email and then a couple days later by mail, but we'll take the email as actual receipt, and that was, I believe, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon on September 18th. That was the letter and the planting mitigation plan, 52 Shirley Avenue, Lowell, Mass, dated 9/18/2012. We have, we have to discuss whether or not that's sufficient and whether we want any changes to it. And two, we need to discuss the timing of it and whether or not it is satisfactory to Commissioner Varnum's original motion that it would have stopped the continuation of the per diem fine at $300, and then discuss at what date, or at least how many days, and the total amount that is due to the pursuant to the $300 per day fine. So I'm assuming everyone's had an opportunity to think. There's no one here. Is there anyone here for Mr. Mercia? No? Okay. So there's no one here on Mr. Mercia's behalf. What I would like to do is just open it as an open discussion to discuss the sufficiency, first, the sufficiency of the materials received, so.
I just have a quick question. Do we have any idea when this plan would be implemented? I was just thinking how you guys were discussing that the frost will be coming soon, so is this something that it will have to wait until the spring? Did he mention that to you? No?
No, we haven't received any more information that was provided in the letter. It's certainly, we actually advised him, as you noted, there's 2 letters. In between those 2 letters was an email from myself back to Mr. Erickson, first just confirming that the commission was really looking for a plan, not just a letter, not a strategy. The second part was that I recommended that they don't start planting until the commission actually have the opportunity to review said plan and approve it, in case what they had in mind was not exactly in line with the enforcement order and the requirements of the replanting plan. So short answer to your question is no, there's nothing out there now, and yeah, I would imagine timeline for planting would be a consideration.
Yeah, and if I might remind the commissioners, is that the stop work order is still in existence on the site. So to the extent that the commission is inclined at least to accept this and to allow the mitigation to proceed, then we would have to at least lift the stop work insofar as to allow this. But it's a good point by Commissioner Chaluka that we should discuss also when and under the circumstances when we should allow Mr. Mercia to begin
The
work and
email
under what conditions.
Yeah, it sounds like he plans on buying these trees immediately, so, I mean, it says, at this time of year, the nurseries have limited availability of tree species. These species are common and most should still be available, so it sounds to me like they're planning to go right ahead with the plan here, but I don't know as much about planting trees as the other commissioners, so I would just, want to bring that up in case it's a very bad idea to plant 20 trees at this time of year. If they're not going to make it through the winter, then we should think about that.
Commissioner Varnum?
I think that's a good point, that especially since the site isn't ready for planting, there are stumps all over the site that would need to be removed. And removing stumps is like a major activity that possibly could be completed in a short amount of time, but with our stop work order, I don't think we want to rush in there and plant trees. But the second important thing I'd like to say is that I find this plan not acceptable as what is proposed. There was some back and forth by email as far as I know, about what exactly should appear in this plan. And DPD and Aaron had asked me, since I made the motion, what I felt was appropriate. First of all, a paper plan is appropriate. I said, use the original plan if you must, and then hand draw the locations of the trees. But an important part of that was that I said the canopy should show what the canopy of the full-size tree would be. And what we have here are the small proposed trees are spaced far apart, and the large proposed trees are at only 10-foot distances. And there's no way that a mature tree could have any kind of a normal shape or anything in that cramped to quarter. The existing trees aren't shown. I know we've talked about the site being cleared, but on the back property line, there are at least 4 existing trees. There's one to the right side of the lot, and there's another to the left side of the lot. And none of those trees are shown on his plan, and in fact, he has a newly proposed tree practically on top of one of the existing trees. My idea was not that the existing trees should be removed so that the new trees could be planted. The types of trees are not a good substitute for what was lost out there. We lost basically deciduous trees, around probably 15 to 20 deciduous trees, and I don't believe a evergreen tree or a needle leaf tree is a substitute for that as far as the ability to evaporate water from the leaves and help to remove water from the site. Mr. Erickson stated in his letter that he felt the soils were of a certain type, but when they were here, they stated that no soil testing had been done, so I'm not sure where or why he's now claiming that the soil is of a certain type that doesn't hold water. I think historically the neighborhood has said that this lot does hold water, that's one of its major functions in the neighborhood, in that it will hold water that might otherwise go other places on other people's lots. I don't think that we should be rushed in choosing trees by the types of trees by what the nursery has in stock. Certainly, if we decide that a certain kind of tree is the best for that site, we would expect that they would be found somewhere if they're normally available. It seems certain that this replanting won't take place this fall, so I don't feel that we should be rushed by what they feel is available in the nursery at the moment. And I'd just like to go down the proposed varieties of trees. The white pine, first of all, is an evergreen and a needle leaf tree, which doesn't help with transpiration of water. The white pine is one of the largest trees that's native to New England. It can grow, 100 or more feet tall, and it certainly spreads probably at least 30 to 50 feet. So putting 4 white pines across the back, only 10 feet from the next tree, certainly isn't realistic, and I'm very surprised that Mr. Erickson, as a biologist, would expect that 10-foot distances between large trees like that would be approved. The white spruce, once again, is a tree that grows 100 feet tall and is even probably wider on the bottom part than the white pine. Red oak is not what I think of as a wetland tree, and if this site is not actually a wetland, it's wet enough, often enough, that it should have a species planted on it that can survive under wet conditions. I haven't heard of any plans to curb or put in storm drains on Shirley Avenue, and I'm pretty sure that this lot is going to continue to flood fairly regularly in rainstorms. We have a swamp white oak that would do better. We have red maples that would do better. We have the ash trees that were there until a month or so ago that seem to be thriving. There was one dead trunk, but the rest were very healthy looking, which is consideration of perhaps replanting ashes on the site. This plan, as far as locations, is obviously set out to facilitate contractors and trucks and cement trucks and things getting into the site, because everything is right on the property line around the 3 back sides. That's not really a landscaping plan, that's a stick the trees in where they'll be out of our way plan. I was hoping for perhaps some specimen beautiful trees like a red maple in the front area. I just am not pleased with this plan. I feel we gave the applicant more information, that he could have made a better plan, that he could have eliminated perhaps the evergreen trees, which aren't good replacements for the deciduous ones on this particular site. I think he was probably told to scale the plan. The plan is not scaled. We have an arborvitae and a white pine the same size here as far as the space it's going to take up. Arborvitaes might make a good hedge, although there's 10 of them planned here, but they're so far apart they wouldn't even be planted in a hedge. And the thing about arborvitaes is they probably last a year or so until the deer find them, and then all of a sudden you don't have 10 of your plantings. This whole area, this whole neighborhood has deer paths running through it, deer running down the street, and it's just not smart to plant arborvitaes. That's one of their favorite food. I'm just very disappointed in the plan. I don't think this is a plan that we can accept. I don't feel a rush to accept this. I think the roots and the stumps out there are holding the soil on the site at the moment, and certainly we expect to act on a better plan than this. It appears that the applicant is hopeful still of getting approval for a building, a house on the lot, and it might actually work to our advantage to wait until spring on the plantings to let him go through his permitting processes and his proposal, and follow that through to its ultimate end. I'm not ready to say follow this plan and plant.
Commissioner Lovely?
I would agree with Commissioner Varnum's comments. What I'm trying to reconcile is the timing of the applicant's proposed work with the reality that it really makes absolutely no sense to rush, as Commissioner Varnum pointed out, to go and plant in 20 trees, of which we're not even agreeing on the species to be planted. I think the applicant, certainly from watching the recording of this hearing, could find out, the type of information that we're looking for and could resubmit a plan. But without the applicant here, it's hard to speculate in terms of the sequencing of what gets done first, a newly submitted tree planting plan. I would agree with, at face value, what Commissioner Varnum says. It seems like, with the timing of the year, what's the rush? Let's allow the permitting process for the other aspects of this project to play out while we reconcile the issues with the existing tree planting, and then hopefully the two timelines will converge for, at the same time, and we can move ahead. Which leads me to one question, which is, we have an enforcement order right now with no further work being allowed out there. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
All right, so I think at some point we could act on whether or not some subsequent work on the property could be done to accommodate a construction schedule, assuming that the permitting process plays out, and address on a separate track the replanting that would need to take place. Because I agree, like I said earlier, with Commissioner Varnum's comments. So I guess I would look for some guidance maybe from the chairman in terms of how do we try and reconcile the existing enforcement order with no work with the lack of an adequate tree planting plan that we have in front of us. I leave that as a comment, I guess, for further discussion.
All right, before I get to you, Commissioner Lynch, I get good questions. I guess the way I would look at it, at least perhaps, would be, I don't know whether or not Mr. Mercier is intending to refile for a new notice of intent or to build. I mean, that's entirely up to him, what he intends to do as far as that goes. But assuming that that's what he's going to do, I suppose the way I look at it is there is currently in existence an existing order of conditions that will expire on its own terms on October 12th, I believe, or some
5th.
October 5th of this year. And but regardless of that, under this enforcement order, there's a stop work order. So nothing's going to change, and I don't envision this commission lifting that stop work order until such time that, and I suppose this is how it could be reconciled. I don't envision this commission lifting that stop work order on the site until such time that Mr. Mercier is prepared to come to the table to work out the details of the mitigation plan and the replantings on the site, and to prepare the site for the replantings. That being said, though, what exists out there now is a little bit of a disaster, and something needs to be done immediately, and perhaps we should discuss that as an ancillary to discussing the adequacy of this particular filing before us that we're considering now. I agree that I was very unhappy with the fact that the majority of the proposed mitigation was deciduous. I mean, it was evergreen species, with only, I think, 4 deciduous, 4 red maples, red oaks, I'm sorry, being proposed. I was a little bit at a loss as to why there were no ash trees proposed, which were thriving on the site and which made up a majority of the species that had existed on the site before. And as a matter of fact, there's still some ash standing on the site, so some rather large ash standing on the site, so in the right rear corner. So I don't know. I think the details and significant details of this replanting mitigation plan need to, and supporting letters need to be discussed prior to, and the details of that need to be worked out with Mr. Mercier prior to this commission even entertaining any lifting of the work order, of the stop work, such that this can be accomplished. Forget about any future filing, okay? I don't even think that this commission will entertain anything like that until these details are worked out.
Well, that's helpful, Mr. Chairman, and where I'm going with this is trying to figure out how to bring closure to this enforcement order. When we last discussed this, we were pretty emphatic about getting an adequate replanting plan, and there would be penalties for every day that that plan was delayed. We did get something. It's not adequate, and I'm just trying to discuss amongst ourselves, where do we go from here? Certainly, there's a stop work order, for discussion. I would think, looking at asking Mr. Mercer to come forward with a revised plan consistent with what we asked in the original enforcement order on the meeting on September 12th. And then along with that, in light of the fact that it doesn't make sense to do any sort of planting in the fall, but we do need to stabilize the site, I would add to that request for a revised plan an interim stabilization measure and give a date certain to get a response without, so in other words, we need to be fair and provide a reasonable opportunity for Mr. Mercer to come up with a revised plan and an interim mitigation measure, but I don't want to leave it open-ended indefinitely. We need to have some sort of incentive to make sure that we get a plan within a reasonable period of time. And that's where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I agree. Good points. Commissioner Lynch, any?
I don't have anything new to add, but just agree with what's been said so far. I think that the plan that they did submit wasn't adequate for this proposal. I don't believe that they're going to be able to do any sort of plantings in the fall. So therefore, that was just brought up. What's the next course of action to, like you said, stabilize the site to make sure that no further, I guess, damage is done? Do you pull up the stumps? Where do we go from here? So I think bringing the applicant in and talking with him to try to work this out would probably be a good course of action to start, but I don't know exactly what the process is, so.
All right, let me suggest this then. Perhaps we should discuss this now. For me, without discussing the adequacy of the mitigation plan itself, the applicant submitted something that wasn't on its face wholly inadequate in response to the order to produce a mitigation plan. I'm not saying that it's satisfactory to the commission. What I'm saying is it at least to me met the spirit of stopping the per diem penalty at some point in time.
Agreed.
I'm satisfied that at least as far as that aspect goes, that Mr. Mercier did that, and we can discuss at what point that happened, but to me, I'm satisfied that at some point in time he stopped the per diem penalty with what he filed. Now, and we can discuss that, but I just wanted to put that out there. But two, now, what I'm going to suggest is that without in the future taking further action with respect to any per diems by Mr. Mercier's presumptive failure to act in the future, what I would suggest is that Mr. Mercier attend our next meeting with a plan, a mitigation plan, and a replanting schedule. And a site preparation plan that includes stumpage and site stabilization for the winter and for safety purposes. And safety purposes doesn't mean, doesn't mean put in a foundation. It means to level a site such that a visitor to the site isn't going to fall into a hole, or cause personal injury. But at this point in time, to cut down stumps to grade, We can do, and again, I don't know if this commission wants at this point in time to order them removed, or as opposed to just cut them down to grade. A stump in the ground is a fairly stable thing. It's, you know, if it's cut down to grade or even a little bit above grade, that's something that doesn't hurt the soil. It retains the it retains the integrity of the existing ground. We can discuss that, but and to appear in front of us in our next meeting, which would be the first October meeting, with a planting mitigation plan, including the spirit of what's being discussed tonight, and that is, you know, a majority of deciduous hardwoods, and like in kind to what had pre-existed on the site. I'll note that there were oaks, there were maples, there were beeches, and there were a significant amount of ash. And that's something they should be looking at. Anyone can plant a bunch of evergreens. They're cheap, they're ugly once they grow out. They kill other greenery around them. And they're generally the first trees that homeowners cut down in small lots, because they take over, they block the sun, the needles drop and kill the lawn, and they're very difficult. You know, the pine cones fall and they get the pine sap all over your floors and rugs, and they come tracked in with the kids. So that generally the pines are the first trees that are removed from the site by the landowner, not the last ones. It's the oaks and the maples and the ashes and the hickories that are kept. They're beautiful trees, and obviously they thrived on this site historically. So we should be looking at replacing them in kind with what pre-existed on the site. So what I would suggest is that, given what's discussed tonight, Mr. Mercier appear before us at our next meeting. And at that point in time, barring any inaction, to come to the table to discuss the mitigation plan, then we can discuss further per diems at that point in time. But at least as would have to order it as part of this process. But I think I'm a little surprised that there's no one here tonight. I'm actually quite surprised that there's no one here tonight. That's. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, and that he perhaps didn't know he should have been here tonight, or perhaps something had happened. But that being said, is that something that's amenable to the commission? I don't, it's open for discussion. So.
Regarding the stumps, I'm just a little fearful of having somebody out there cutting down stumps in case they see a tree and think needs to be a stump or something of that sort. I don't view stumps as actually a safety hazard, but I'm wondering if there could be some hydro seed or something put in there between the stumps just for the winter, but that would have to go in fairly soon too.
Yeah, what's the limitation on a hydro seed to take? Is that, we're looking at 2 weeks for frost, so, and nothing's going to take.
Perhaps some wood chips or something, I don't know. I'm not sure there's a tremendous erosion threat out there. The lot is sort of bowl-shaped, even more so now without the shrubbery. I would just as soon not have the lot touched until we have a mitigation plan agreed upon. Because, you start on something and then one thing leads to another sometimes.
Yeah, I could agree to that. Any further discussion? All right, so given the history of what's gone on here, perhaps it's best that it's just not touched until the first October meeting. And certainly the existing stop work order is continuing. No one should be out there doing anything on this site, including raking leaves or anything like that. So nothing comes on, nothing goes off. All right. Um, that should be done by a mailing.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we both call and send a formal letter to the property owner, the applicant, to let them know that, first, that they're required to show up at the next meeting, but also inform them of the additional items that the commission has suggested be included in the replanting and mitigation plan.
Yeah, I don't think we need to take a formal order, a formal motion on this. It's part of the ongoing enforcement order that's currently in existence. I mean, if we were to remove the stop work order, if we were to change the existing enforcement order, then we would need to take action by motion, but we're not changing anything. It's still, the stop work order is in existence.
Right.
We're just requesting that the applicant come before us and to discuss this planting mitigation plan, but what he may want to do in preparation of that is what we have discussed tonight, and pass that along to him, that the commission is looking for something more commonsensical and certainly more deciduous and far fewer softwoods.
My understanding is that the commission was actually looking for a revised plan from what was submitted and reviewed tonight that included all the items that was discussed.
Right.
And that's what we'd be communicating, that
Right.
the expectation is that they would be showing up with a revised plan, correct?
Right. Correct.
Okay.
I think a written sequence of what would need to be done from them too would be helpful, so that,
Okay.
Yeah, with a proposed when we're going to start, and again, I agree with Commissioner Varnum. I was a little chagrined by the comment that limited varieties exist. I don't really care. That's your problem, not ours.
Right.
Go out and find them.
I understand, and I agree that there's no additional action that is necessary for the commission to take as far as an enforcement order or a change to enforcement order. But I would recommend or suggest that the commission consider taking a formal vote to continue this item to the next meeting, and that the item as a part of the discussion on the agenda for the next meeting,
All right.
that a revised plan will be discussed and will be required of the applicant, including all the items discussed this
All
evening.
right, that we can do, but as part of that, I also now want to discuss the amount of the penalty. The enforcement order, or the penalty, was issued as a per diem rate of $300 starting on September 13th would have been the first penalty day. So then I have the 13th, 14th. Now we have the 15th and 16th being Saturday and Sunday, and the 17th, and then the 18th. So I have 6 days, which would be $1,800. The planting mitigation plan was received on the 18th, and Commissioner Varnum's motion was a major portion of the day, and I believe, by the Wetlands Protection Act, a day is 5 p.m. to 5 p.m. as far as notices go. If you look anywhere in the Wetlands Protection Act, the day ends at 5 p.m. and that's notices that are received by then, and that's by statute, not by. I don't think we made any specific time. We might have discussed it. I'm not quite sure at this point in time, but it was received at 3 p.m. At least for me, and again, this is just me, I'm inclined to say that it was satisfied on the 18th, therefore the per diem ended on the 17th. So for me, it would have been the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th, which would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, or $1,500. And that's what I would request that the penalty be. And again, I'll open it up for discussion. I know that there was some discussion as to whether or not to include the weekend or not. The the applicant certainly had the ability to submit a mitigation plan that Thursday, Friday, and even Saturday or Sunday. He submitted this by email, so it certainly could have been submitted on the weekend too. So, I mean, email doesn't shut down over the weekend, and the mail was delivered on Saturday. So, so even that and registered and certified mail is even deliverable on Sunday. You can request Sunday delivery. So, even though no one would have been here, it doesn't matter. For certified mail, it's when it's tendered, not when it's actually received. So, so he had the ability. So I'm inclined to include the weekend as part of the per diem. It wasn't specifically discussed, but again, it was a per day. It was a per day penalty. If there's an issue with respect to it, he can certainly take that up with, with the taxing authority, because that will go through the assessors and the tax collector's office ultimately as part of as part of his tax bill, from what I understand. Correct?
Well, if a fine is actually issued as soon as the commission agrees on the actual fine.
It goes as a lien on the property.
After a year. I mean, if there's a non-payment, you're right, after a year. But we've actually already sent out a letter for 4 days. We didn't include the weekend, but if the commission feels it's 5 days that is what should be assigned as per the vote, we're happy to revise the letter and inform the property owner that it's actually 5 days. Is
there a reason why you didn't include the weekend?
Well, the only reason is that whenever we deal with the notification with the Wetlands Protection Act, it works on business days. The notice needs to be out 5 business days.
That's for purposes of notice and filings.
Yeah.
Any filings less than 5 days, you don't count the weekends. It's just the business days.
Right.
And it's anything over 5 includes the weekends. This isn't notice, though.
That's correct, and it's completely up to the commission as how that's applied. That was just how we wanted to get the letter out in the fine so that it was moving, but that doesn't mean that that's the final say on that. It's absolutely up to the commission.
And again, it's up to the entire commission. The way I look at it is that Mr. Mercia had the ability to comply with this order on Saturday and Sunday. So I think the per diem applies to those days. So. I'll open it up for discussion. So.
At this point, I'd be satisfied with the $1,500, a 5-day penalty. I'm more interested at this point in looking ahead at the mitigation, and certainly if there's a failure to comply at some point in the future, we can always revisit penalties moving forward, recognizing that it's separate from this penalty that's being assessed for this action. So my recommendation would be to hold Mr. Mercer to the $1,500 penalty.
Commissioner Barnum?
I think we're losing some valuable time here. I agree with the 5 days penalty. However, I'd like to hold open if this isn't resolved at the next meeting, to restart the penalty clock at that time.
Commissioner Chulka?
I would agree with Commissioner Varnum and Lovely. I think the more important thing at this point is to clarify what the applicant will be doing going forward. I'm satisfied with either of the fine amounts mentioned.
Commissioner Lynch?
I agree with the 1,500 and with what Commissioner Varnum said about revisiting the fines if it's not completed by the time the applicant comes in for the next meeting.
Okay. Are we then, we're clear as to what we're going to respond to Mr. Mercier as far as the next meeting? All right.
Yep.
2 votes then. One is a motion to continue action on the enforcement order to the 1st October meeting, which is...
I think the 9th?
1st is Monday, so the 3rd is Wednesday, 7th is the 10th. Is the 10th.
Make that motion.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Varnum, seconded by Commissioner Lovely.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now, with respect to, and that motion was to continue further action on the enforcement order to the next meeting in accordance with what has been discussed tonight. The second matter is with respect to the amount of the fine, and do I have a motion as to the amount and the days that it covered?
I'll offer a motion to set the fine at $1,500 to cover the 5 days while we were waiting for the applicant's response.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right. Are there any questions, Aaron?
No, it's pretty clear. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thanks. And that's it. Is there any other business that's not on the agenda that we need to discuss?
There isn't any other business. I just wanted to give an update on one other thing. We already talked a lot about the planting of the sycamores. I wanted to just provide an update on where we're at with the Perkins Street project, but we already discussed that. The other is, I know it was asked a meeting or two ago about the wetlands ordinance and where that is. It's my understanding from the legal department that it will be placed on the agenda this Friday for a city council meeting next Tuesday. They won't make a decision, and then at that point they will have notice for the public hearing. There'll be a public hearing for the change. So we're looking at, I think it's the second or third city council meeting in October where they will take up the wetlands ordinance as it's been proposed. I will have a draft to the commission as it's been formulated by the legal department for a vote, probably by the end of this week. Well, definitely by this end of the week because it will be in the council packet.
Okay, great. Anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Lynch. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. And we have a couple things to sign, and good night.